naturally. I was just reading over the song. It's confusing. It's outdated. From far and wide, redundant. Oh, Canada. Big smile. We stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land, all gods, or no God, glorious and free.
That was William Shatner having a bit of fun with our national anthem, and of course trying to play up on the idea that, well, you know, the idea of God in Canada, it's outdated. Some would say that Canada is not a Christian country, that there was no Christian or religious influence that are found in it all. Those that have studied history know differently. And one of those people is Bill Prankard. He joins me now. He's with the Bill Prankard Evangelical Association. Bill, good to see you.
Nice to see you, Brian. Happy Easter.
Well, happy Easter. Well, it's Good Friday today.
It is.
It's close to
Sunday's coming.
To celebrating Easter. Yes. Now, you and I have talked before about this. In fact, we did a tour of Parliament together, looking at all the different inscriptions, and they are everywhere. Religious inscriptions put in the 1860s, put in the 1920s when Center Block was rebuilt. And this idea that there's a bunch of agnostics, there was no religious influence at the founding, is completely wrong, isn't it?
Well, I mean, Brian, anybody that says that is absolutely ignorant to our whole history. I mean, you know, the center of the message of this season is the cross, and the center of the history of Canada is the cross. I mean, every time explorers came here, from John Cabot to Jacques Cartier to Champlain, the first thing they did was planted a cross. And, you know, it was like when in later years, guys went gold, you know, seeking for gold, they'd put their stake down. Well, it was like they were putting their stake down, and before they planted the flag of the nations they're representing, they planted the cross and made the declaration, we're declaring this land shall be a land of freedom to worship God.
So it's interesting that you went all the way back to Cabot and Cartier in Champlain, and you're absolutely correct. I hadn't thought of that. I was thinking more in terms of 1867. But it does go back all the way through. In many of the first explorers of the lands were missionaries.
They were. I mean, the first thing John Cabot did, and he's accredited to discovering Canada, although the folks came from Norway long before that, and many of them were believers, but he planted the cross, and he declared this shall be a Christian nation. And then you've got people like Champlain who made the statement, you know, the salvation of one soul to Jesus Christ is of more importance of the development of an entire nation. And Jacques Cartier, when he founded Montreal, first thing he did was plant the cross, get down on his knees with the natives and with his crew, and raise their hands and thank God for this place.
I mean, there's a lot of Canadians that don't believe anymore. You and I both know church attendance isn't at an all-time high in this country. It is elsewhere, and there are pockets where it's quite strong. But even if you're not a believer, you should at least be able to acknowledge, and the history books should be able to acknowledge this, but they don't.
The problem is they have taken this history out of the secular textbooks. I mean, because we as the believers, and I believe, and, you know, I thank God for His Son and for you who are still a voice in this nation for what I believe are the majority of people in this country. I believe the majority of people still believe in Judeo-Christian principles that our nation was founded on and are very concerned about what's happening. But most of them are saying, you know, well, what can we do? What can we do? But I mean, you're not talking about just religious people. You're talking about radical Christians. I mean, Jacques Cartier talked about the fact that, you know, he read the scripture. The first thing he did to the natives was read the scripture, basically the Easter story. He said, I read from the Gospel of John and told them about Jesus' death and resurrection. And he said many of the natives came needing prayer for the sick. He prayed for the sick, and he claimed in letters back to France that the sick got healed. And so, I mean, you're talking about evangelists, that, you know, and then David Campbell, who was accredited for discovering Western Canada, mapping out the mountains, and I read about him when I was in school, and I thought, well, why would he give us life for that? I mean, mapping out that part of Canada when, you know, real men don't read maps anyway, so, I mean, why would you bother? But he said, you know, he had three goals. One was to discover Western Canada. to discover the routes, to make maps of it so other people could come, and particularly missionaries could come. But the third one was to bring the gospel to the natives. And every night, this guy, David Thompson, would sit down with the natives and read scripture and explain and have church, really. So, I mean, you're going back a long time.
But, okay, this is still going on. And I want to show a couple of examples. And they come directly from our proper name as a country, our motto, and what's on our coins.
Right.
The full name of Canada is still the Dominion of Canada. We don't use it very often anymore.
But you know where that comes from?
I do. It comes from the same place as our motto, and I want to read where our motto comes from. And they both come from well, let's stop here. This is our coin, first of all. This is the back of a penny, and on the back of every coin in Canada, you see DG Regina. That means De Gratia Regina, Queen by the grace of God.
Yeah.
You know, our monarch, our head of state, is head of a church. Not a church I belong to, not a church you belong to, but she's head of a church. And that is on there as well. But our motto and the name of Canada both come from Psalm 72:8, which reads, "He shall have dominion from sea to sea and from the river unto the ends of the earth." That, a lot of people, Samuel Tilley was reading that from what I understand, in London as they were talking about what to name Canada and how to go about it.
Actually, in Charlottetown.
In Charlottetown. He was reading scripture, came across that and said, "Fellas, I got it."
Yeah. And the gentleman that was chairing that meeting at the end said, we must admit that the hand of God was upon our deliberations. They founded this nation with prayer. And, you know, it's sea to sea and river to the ends of the earth. And, you know, we're looking now at the fact that the church, the Christian people who still believe this, and there are a lot of us that still really believe Bible values, have pulled back. We pulled back from government, from media, and from education. And saying, well, we'll just let it be neutral. Well, the moment there was a void, darkness came in, and this thing called secularism came in.
Which is not neutral.
Secularism is not neutral. It's a religion that now in our schools, because we pulled out, you know, I've said, you know, when we took God and the Bible out of schools, then all kinds of bad things started happening, and some people say, well, God's still there. But the fact was, we left the void. So now secularism is teaching this religion that there is no God, that they're against the family, they're against the Bible, they're against life. I mean, they're for abortion, they're glamorizing homosexuality. It's time for us to stand up. We sing it in our national anthem, "Oh Canada, we stand on guard." We've got to do more than sing it. We've got to rise up.
All right. Bill Prankard, thanks for the history lesson. I'm sure we'll talk again. Share your thoughts on all of this. Facebook, it's easy to find me. Just punch in facebook.com, punch in Byline or my name. You'll find us. Make sure you click the little thumbs up. Make sure you like us. We've got more to come.